Well, hello there, Dr. Yum.
Hello there, Coach Mel.
I'm so excited because we got this new platform to work. It was a little bit of a crazy time trying to get this new technology working, but we did it because we're so smart.
We're so smart. We love technology, but sometimes it gives us a little anxiety.
Yes, yes, that's so true.
Oh
So
my God.
I am just going to take 1 second and click over onto Facebook and make sure that we're coming through to all of our friends because there is kind of a 30-second delay. And so because of that, we're also going to give everybody a few minutes to join us, but we have so much to talk about. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 reasons that you really can't wait for your kid to grow out of picky eating.
Yes, you really can't. This is going to be a fun one.
This is going to be a fun one. And you know what? We're going to make sure that people get to ask questions. But you know what? While we're waiting for people to join us, and I'd love for them to just make a comment, give us a thumbs up, let us know that they're here. And while we're waiting, let's tell everybody how we met because it wasn't on Twitter.
It was not. It was on Facebook. It is a story of modern friendship, um, made possible by social media and the World Wide Web. So we met on Facebook. I had been following you for a while and loved what you do for children to make their life, um, happier when it comes to eating and more joyful. And I loved the approach that you had with children with special needs. And, parallel to what you were doing in Colorado, I was having sort of my own mission to try to get kids to learn to eat healthy whole food to improve their health and well-being and longevity. As a pediatrician, that's sort of my job, is to make sure that kids live a long, healthy, productive life and that we optimize their health. And I was seeing a real problem with how kids were eating. And so I wanted to help families in my community learn how to feed their kids better. And I thought, this Melanie Potock would be a great partner in crime.
We do really think alike. I always say you're my lost sister. We look so much alike, though, you know.
Yeah, well, the resemblance is uncanny.
I'm having a good time while you're chatting because this new platform that I have lets me kind of switch back and forth. So, hey, check this out.
What?
Look at that. I know, right? Well, let's
Technology.
tell everybody a little bit more, though, because, here I am in Colorado and I'm working with kids who very often are diagnosed with underweight or failure to thrive. And you see those children too, but my understanding is what you're really battling in your area in Virginia, and maybe you can give us some statistics, is childhood obesity. And the funny thing is when you and I first started talking years ago, um, the kids that I'm treating who are underweight, failure to thrive, and the kids that you're treating who are overweight or perhaps even reaching the obese stage, they're all eating the same thing.
They are. They have a very similar eating style, believe it or not. Even though they end up landing on a different part of the BMI curve,
Hmm.
there is a common thread with these children is that they are having some challenges with eating and
Yeah.
end up eating either the wrong foods or not enough of the right foods or not enough foods in general or maybe too much of the wrong foods. And so we were really fighting the same battle and having the same issues with our patients, even though they may look different or land differently on the BMI curve.
Well, so that brings me to the growth chart. And whenever I'm teaching, I'm leaving early in the morning, 4 in the morning, to go to Houston tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Whenever I'm teaching, I always talk to the audience about what you've taught me about the growth curve. And one thing that you and I really agree on is the growth curve is a nice reference point, but it's not always about the growth curve. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. The growth curve, I think a lot of parents look at it as a point in time,
Right.
but really the growth curve is a story. and it should be taken in the context of a child's overall health status, right? So there's so much that goes into a growth curve. There's their nutritional status, there's their genetics,
Right.
there's their previous history of growth, right?
Mhm.
So if I see a child, let's say at the fifth percentile in their body mass index, depending on where they were previously, it may elicit a different reaction or different concern for me. So if that child was previously at the second percentile or below, we may be really celebrating the fact that that child is at the fifth percentile
Yeah,
now.
right.
However, if that child used to be at the 75th percentile and then very precipitously dropped to the fifth, then I might be really concerned what's going on with this child. So the growth curve is really a story, and it should be taken in context of so many factors going on with the child. And
What
so, it's we put a lot into the growth curve, but we really need to be thinking about the whole child, and the growth curve is part of that story.
See, I just love what you just said, is it really is just a part of the story, and we have to look at the whole child. So very often what other feeding specialists will say to me is that, you know, the child's pediatrician, and you know me, I love a good pediatrician. The
Yeah.
child's pediatrician is saying, well, he's following his own curve. But the thing is, it's one thing to follow your own curve, but it's another to be eating chicken nuggets, macaroni and cheese, and the occasional apple slice for 3 years, because that's about the whole child. That's about that nutritional intake and the health of that baby.
Right.
All my kids are babies, so for that little kiddo. Um, when you run into a situation where you can see that they're following the growth curve, but the parent is reporting to you that they're really a picky eater, and it doesn't seem like typical picky eating that we run into, say, around 2 years of age. Can you talk a little bit about that, about what sort of detective work do you do to try to figure out if maybe there's more to this than just the growth curve?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's part of the whole story. So I don't just want to know where the child is today. I want to know where they've been.
Hmm.
And so, are they losing weight? Are they gaining weight? And then I want to know a little bit about the context of mealtime at their house, at their
Sure.
home. And what one of the wonderful things about my friendship with you is that I've really learned that if a family is experiencing stress or anxiety around feeding, if this picky eating style is affecting the family dynamics, then there's a problem. And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the growth curve shows. That's a problem that needs to be addressed. And it's not necessarily true that a child will grow out of it with time. So many times parents need strategies and they need to be heard. And they need at least to be validated and followed up. It may be that the child's eating habits are okay for that child at that moment, but some tips and tricks and some follow up may be appropriate. And then if we find that the child isn't improving, if the family dynamics are worsening, then we give that family a lifeline. And maybe it's introducing them to someone like you who specializes in feeding. But families, first of all, need to be heard and validated that
Yes.
their concern is really real.
And I think that's our first point, right? That's the number one reason you can't wait for your kid to grow out of it. Because if you're just going to play the waiting game, you aren't really looking at the whole child. And
Right.
when I say you, I mean parents, and
Sure.
having a very picky eater myself, I know what this is like. I know what it's like for a pediatrician, well meaning, to reassure me and say, all kids are picky. But in my gut, before I ever became a speech pathologist, I knew there was more to this for my little one than I was communicating to to the pediatrician. And that's the first reason you can't wait for your kid to grow out of it, because it's possible there's actually other factors going on. So that's why I like the fact that you look at the whole child and you really take a look at the family meal times and also the stress that this brings, not only to the kiddo, but to the entire family, because that's going to start to change the family dynamic. And that in turn is going to change family behavior and influence the child's relationship with food.
Absolutely. And just knowing a little bit about the social structure, the family, how the family handles food, what's going on with that family.
Right.
Maybe maybe you have two parents that are working different shifts and family mealtime is really stressful. So I always tell families there's what we wish we could do, and then there's real life and reality. And so
Sure.
working within that framework, you can really give more pointed advice about how to strategize and give families an even better lifeline and some even better tips and strategies, just knowing the bigger picture.
Such a good point. Hey, before we get to the second reason, because I really want to address anxiety as a big piece of this, I
Yeah.
also, now that we have a lot of people who have joined us, and everybody remember to type a comment, let us know where you're from. If you're in Virginia with Dr. Yum, or you're in Colorado with me, or Puerto Rico, we have a lot of followers there. We have a
Oh,
lot in
yeah.
Australia. Let us know in the comments. We want to see that. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Jody. But I also want everybody to know what's going on in the with the Yumathon. Can you explain that to them?
The Yumathon. Okay, so this has been our all consuming project all week. So, some of you may know that I am one of the founding board members of the Dr. Yum Project. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And our mission is to make families understand or help families to understand the connection between the food that we eat and our overall health, because so many people, they eat and they don't realize that the food that they're eating can make them feel better or worse, and they don't understand this connection as well as we should. And so we do this with cooking instruction, we do this with um, nutrition education, and we have a number of programs throughout our community. And really, many of our messages can be reached from any part of the world, really, through our website. And so we rely on support and donations from people who believe in our mission.
Yeah.
And so the Yumathon is really a week of us showing our impact and letting people know about our work. And so we've had a really good time. We've been all around our community showing how we are changing lives with food. And our motto is eat well, change your world.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that for those of you who've been tuning in to us, this whole week, that you're finding out that we really are changing lives with food. And it may sound a little bit corny, but we see how people's whole outlook can change when they feel better because they're eating the right foods.
And I think very often too is it's a little bit hard to grasp if you're not eating healthy foods, but once you
Right,
start to do it, you I didn't realize I could feel this way. That's what a
right,
lot of my families tell me. And even my older kids that I work with, they talk about, I feel different, but they never knew what it felt like to feel good because
right,
for years they've been eating stuff that it really just isn't that healthy. It's yummy, but it
right.
isn't great for our bodies or for our brain and or for our mood, frankly.
No, absolutely. And so, we've really tried, my heart is in with children, because as a pediatrician, that's what I do. And so our mission really started with making sure that our kids were eating well, but it has expanded into making sure that our parents know how to deliver that healthy food, that our teachers and that our community and the whole infrastructure is made easier for these families with young children, so that they can all eat better and all feel better and
Yeah.
create that culture of wellness that we talk about. So, yeah, and one of the big programs that we've been heavily focused on this year is one that you and I have partnered with for so many years, and that's the Dr. Yum Preschool Food Adventure.
Yeah.
And that's how our friendship got started, is
Yeah.
because I saw this need. In Virginia, we have a huge problem of obesity in the preschool age. If you look at preschoolers on the WIC program, our rates of obesity are the highest in the nation.
Wow.
And so, I wanted to create a program to teach teachers to teach nutrition to preschoolers and have that message translate into the home so the parents can continue that education at home. And so in 2013, you and I sat down over the phone and we wrote this little curriculum that was 9 lessons.
Yeah.
And gosh, I don't think we realized how many kids we were going to affect with that program. It's now in its sixth year. We've
Yeah.
done a ton of research with the help of Dr. Nancy Zucker, who is a leading researcher who is based at Duke University. And we've really shown that the program really has changed how kids think about food and enjoy food. Their enjoyment of food has increased, their refusal of food has decreased. In our area, we have piloted this program in Head Start, and we have seen the BMI data that's come through and how these BMIs are really improving after 3 years of
So
these kids
exciting.
doing this program. And so we're so excited and proud. This year, we are launching this program nationally, and it's going to reach a ton of kids around the country. We have 800 kids in the Virginia Beach area, which through the Head Start program that will be using this curriculum. And that's one of the focuses that we've had this year is to get that work out to a national audience.
And as I'm watching the comments here, we have Gretchen says, we love the preschool adventure at St. George's. And we have
Yay!
a PEDS resident, Samantha, who's tuning in from Greenville, North Carolina, as well as
Oh,
Erin, who's I know in Virginia near you. We have so many speech pathologists and occupational therapists. I'm just seeing them scroll by. So
yes.
I want to let everybody know that we're definitely going to be taking your questions here soon. But along the concept of the preschool food adventure, that really is the number two reason, is that if we were just going to wait for preschoolers to start to eat differently, right? There's going to be at least 1 out of 4 of those kids who isn't going to grow out of that preschool stage of picky eating. So what we did is we got together and said, let's teach them from the start to love
Yes.
healthy food. And
Yes.
so this 2-year curriculum that we created together, along with your amazing Dr. Young Project team, and
Yes.
everyone is a volunteer, including me and you, because we love it.
Yes.
But they've all really come together to create a curriculum that is now research backed and amazing, really strong research that shows that these kids really are learning to eat healthy food. And I love the fact that we're getting reports that the families are eating healthier as well.
Absolutely. We were, Melanie, you were in town for our training and celebration of our new sixth edition. And we had a beautiful testimonial from one of the teachers who's been teaching this program now 6 years. And she talked about how she has seen through siblings going through the program how families have changed their food culture at home because of the exposure that they get through the Dr. Young
Wow.
preschool food curriculum. So again, changing lives and the impact that it has. We try to impact not just kids, but their families, their grandparents, their community. And we're really seeing that happening in Central Virginia. And we're excited to see that happen in other communities that take on the preschool food adventure.
So
Um,
exciting to have it nationwide now. And it's my understanding that they can contact go through the Dr. Young website if anybody would like to learn
yes.
more about it or learn how to bring it to their area. But for now, getting to our third reason that you can't wait for your kid to grow out of it. I want everybody to know that we have something kind of fun going on, and it's called the Power Hour.
Yes, the
Can you
power hour.
can you explain to all your listeners what we get to do during this time together on Facebook Live?
So, throughout the week, we have had very generous donors who have gotten behind our mission and are willing to match your donations to the Dr. Young Project and basically double your impact by matching those donations. So, I know a really generous friend of mine named Melanie Potock who has decided to be our Power Hour sponsor right now. So,
Yes, right now.
so during this hour, if you donate to the Dr. Young Project, Melanie will match your donations up to $1,000. So this is an ideal time if you've been following our work, if you're compelled to give, this is the perfect time to do it because your donations will be matched and you're doubling your impact. And so, of course, Melanie, we're just so grateful for your help and
I'm happy to.
yeah, and your and how you back this mission with your whole heart.
Okay, don't make speech therapists cry. Okay, so all my friends out there, I know you're listening. Here's what I need you to do. I'm going to give $1,000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to match whatever you give up to $1,000. But I'm going to throw a little bit more tempting prize into it. I'm actually going to throw in two prizes. Are you ready? So the first thing is if you give $100, I'll give $100. But what you'll also get is a signed copy of our award-winning book, Raising a Healthy Happy Eater. It's right there over my shoulder. And we'll have it signed by Dr. Yum, and you get my signature too. And we'll send it to
Yay.
you. So anybody
Yeah.
who donates $100, I'm going to match it. And then we're also going to send you a copy of our book signed from both of us. So I'm going to be talking in just a minute about the other prize that we're going to be giving away. But before I do, I just want to clue everybody in that right after we created the preschool food curriculum, then I said we should write a book. So we wrote Raising a Healthy Happy Eater, and that has done so well. Can you talk to everyone who's listening about how you use that book to help parents parent proactively?
Yes, parenting proactively is actually one of our parenting passport stamps. It's raising a healthy, happy eater really is a parenting book. And we wanted to equip parents with knowledge and education about feeding development and how to foster feeding development so that with that understanding of how a child learns to eat, you can make sure to raise the healthiest, happiest eater possible. And so, we set out to create this roadmap really for parents. And so, what I do in my practice, and I'm so proud of my patients and their families and how many great eaters I have.
Yeah.
What I have really made a priority is helping families to understand feeding development. And what I do is I encourage them to get their hands on the book from the beginning. And I have made a commitment to make sure that all of our libraries stock the book so that families can borrow it. We actually sell it to benefit the Dr. Young Project in my office. I tell them all the ways that they can get it so that they use it to anticipate feeding development that is about to happen, not
Right.
while it's happening.
Parent
Because
proactively.
parent proactively, because you and I both know that if you don't understand feeding development, it's very easy to fall into missteps, parenting missteps, right? And you might end up reinforcing behaviors or feeding patterns that aren't ideal.
Yeah.
And so what we want parents to know is what's coming up, what's around the corner, and how do I manage that so that I'm doing the best that I can to foster great feeding development. And so in the newborn visit, we give a little card that introduces them to the book. And then at the 2-month visit, I tell them, okay, now next time we're going to be talking about solid foods. Why don't you read the chapter on starting solid foods and bring me your questions and we can talk about the questions that you have. And so most of my patients' families are kind of one step ahead of where their babies really are. And so they're making all the right parenting moves through feeding. And that's resulted in a bunch of great eaters in the practice, which is awesome.
It's so
Um,
great that you take the time to do that with your families and that you really see you see it not only from the whole child perspective, but the whole family perspective.
right.
And I know when you and I go to the American Academy of Pediatrics together and all those pediatricians are lining up to talk to you and saying, tell me what to do. This is one of the things you talk to them about is really talking to families proactively saying, you're about to hit the terrific twos. And
Oh,
here's what's going to happen with your kid's appetite. And don't fret, but here are a few ideas. Let's turn to this chapter together and bookmark it. And I want you to read this chapter when you go home.
yes.
That your partner, your husband, the grandparents, everybody reads it. So you are again parenting proactively, and that
Right.
we're also parenting consistently, and everybody is literally on the same page on what to do.
Absolutely. That's so important too, because there's so many families where there are multiple caregivers. And so it really is important to get that consistent message. So everyone's parenting in the same way around food, especially.
Well, that brings me to the other prize that I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
give away tonight. because I like prizes. And
Yeah,
I know that we have one of the Dr. Yum Project volunteers who is posting occasionally how to donate to the Dr. Yum Project, especially during this hour, because remember, I'm matching whatever they donate. So
that's
you
right.
guys make me pay. Come on. Um, but I also want to tell everybody that right after we wrote Raising Healthy Happy Eater, we decided what parents and professionals really need is a video course. It's kind of the book in video, but there's more information. And we have little kids in the videos, and it's just
Yeah,
so practical and fun. And that course is called the Picky Eater Video Course. And it's on my website at mymunchbug.com or melaniepotock.com. So that is typically a 5 hour course. It's $50. And I'm going to give the winner their choice. They can either take that course for free, or if they're a speech language pathologist or occupational therapist who also wants to take my CEU course, which is a 9.5 hour course that they have 90 days to watch, and they can have their CEUs automatically applied to their registry. I'll give them $50 off that course. So we'll give it to them for half off.
that's awesome.
So how are they going to win that? Well, what you guys are going to do is I want you to start typing in your questions right now. Because after we go through the last couple of reasons on why you can't wait for your kid to grow out of it, we're going to start answering your questions. So ask a question, you have a better chance of winning. Tag
Nice.
a friend in another comment, you have a better chance of winning. And I see that someone has just posted all the rules for us too, which is awesome. But again, ask a question in another comment, tag a friend. You can tag as many friends as you want. You go right
Okay.
ahead. And that's going to increase your chance of winning. And be sure to like the My Munchbug page and the Dr. Yum Facebook page. So let's go ahead and jump into the next reason why you can't wait for your kid to grow out of it. Um, Part of the reason why we created that 5 hour video course together is because we really wanted to be able to provide red flags when a child might morph from garden variety picky eating to a true feeding disorder. And one of the things that you and I have become very interested in, and I'm going to be speaking at the American Speech Language Hearing Association about this in November, is how these kids begin to develop true anxiety and sometimes anxiety disorders around food if we wait too long to address it. And that
Yes.
is something that I am now so passionate about. I have probably half of my caseload of the kids I'm working with right now are a little bit older. They're, third to seventh grade, and they all now have severe anxiety around trying new food. Yet they have the motor skills to do it. They
Right.
have certainly great parenting around them, but their anxiety, what it feeds on is avoidance. So the
Right.
more they avoid new food, the bigger the anxiety becomes. Let me phrase it another way. If the anxiety monster is up here, right? And we're trying to get the anxiety to go down, what we actually want to do is starve the anxiety monster, because
Right.
what he eats is avoidance. So the
Right.
more the kids avoid trying new foods, actually the more room for the monster to grow. And he
Right.
becomes this vicious beast in the background all the time. And anxiety will grow anywhere you allow it to. So it's yet another reason why I don't want parents to wait, because I don't want those kids on my caseload when they are in fifth grade and they've been a picky eater that never grew out of it, but now they have significant anxiety and maybe even an anxiety disorder to boot.
Right. And this is one of these topics that really deserves a lot of parent education because,
Sure.
again, parents don't know, we don't have a rule book on how to deal with a child with anxiety around food or anxiety at all. And we've had a lot of conversations about this. Parents really need to know how to parent around that. And it's not intuitive. When we have a child who's anxious, our tendency is to nurture and to try to make their anxiety go away and to help them avoid situations that may cause them anxiety, when in fact, as you said, you may be growing that anxiety monster bigger and bigger. And so I'm just so grateful that you put together your video course about anxiety and feeding disorders, because it's really, I think, an untapped niche that I think a lot of us could learn about and help our patients
I
um,
it's to me,
through.
it's the missing link. It really is. It's really, since I learned more about pediatric anxiety over the past year, it has changed a lot of what I do with kids, and my kids are making faster progress because I don't
Hmm.
let them feed the monster anymore. And it's challenging because these kids are very anxious. They're teary, sometimes they're
Hmm.
sobbing. They're so scared. And as much as I want to wrap my arms around them and comfort them, really, we know for sure that there's very good research that shows that if we work with the parents and we don't, oh gosh, for lack of a better word, coddle that anxiety, the
Right,
kids actually get better. So
right,
part of my role is helping parents know how to gently push those kids to take the next step without a lot of pressure, but also how not to feed that anxiety monster because he's really the one who's getting in the way of the kid making progress. So
right.
I have a new video course on my website called Pediatric Feeding Disorders and Anxiety. Don't feed the monster. And that's also part of that CEU bundle course that I was telling you about, where they can take the course that you and I developed called the Picky Eater course. And then we also have your wonderful nutritionist, Sarah Moran, your
Yes.
registered dietitian. And she and I developed a course together all about pediatric nutrition. So those are all things that we'll be giving away, that $50 coupon that people can apply to one of those courses. But I'll tell you what, let's talk about the last reason that we can't wait for kids to grow out of it. Um, do you have something in your mind that you want to say about this? Because I know what my last reason is, and I want everybody to know we did not talk before we did this. We were like, oh no, I know what I'm going to say. So I'm curious to see if we're going to say the same thing. Are you thinking of something or do you want me to go ahead?
You go ahead. I am thinking of something, but I want to hear what you say.
Okay. One of the reasons why we don't want kids to grow to we want to don't want to wait for kids to grow out of it is because babies from about 6 months when we start solids up to about 18 months, they're in that beautiful what we call flavor windows. Very good
Mm,
research behind this. That if we expose them to a lot of different flavors and a lot of different tastes, temperatures, textures, that this is our opportunity to get as many different tastes, temperatures, textures in their little mouth and have them learn to love food because they're then going to enter a natural
mm,
phase of what we think of as picky eating. By age 2, their growth really slows down and
yep.
they're just not as hungry and they're busy. They're so busy
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sitting at the table just doesn't seem like a lot of fun to them. So we want to take that opportunity. But herein lies the problem. I know you are a very big advocate for early intervention or birth to 3 treatment for any sort of difficulty, but especially feeding disorders. And if we wait for a child to grow out of it, and they enter that natural phase of picky eating, let's say, and the parents are thinking, well, most kids are picky till about age 3, they have missed the opportunity for free to low cost services,
Yes.
yeah, in their state. And from birth to 3 is when we can come in and really help these kids. So I always recommend to parents that if they're stressed over their kids' difficulty eating, even if it just seems like garden variety picky eating, especially in the birth to 3 period, to talk to their pediatrician right away. I always say, stress that you're stressed because
Yes.
that's what a pediatrician is really going to listen to. Am I correct there? Is like, oh my gosh, this is stressing you out. Let's get you some help.
Absolutely. I think being persistent and letting your pediatrician know that it is creating a family stress, a different dynamic, that you've tried these things and you're still not satisfied that things are going the way they should. And really, this kind of line that we have that kids are going to grow out of it, to me, just isn't really doing the problem justice,
Right.
because I really feel like if that's the party line, kids aren't going to grow out of it. They really aren't, because as you and I know, and the reason we wrote Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater, it's very easy to make parenting missteps if you don't understand why a child might be restricting their eating, and you don't have a strategy, and you don't feel comforted by looking at the growth curve with your pediatrician and understanding feeding development. I think parents don't often get that information ahead of time. And so they do end up making these, well-meaning parents that are trying to get their kids to eat better end
Right.
up making parenting missteps that reinforce the picky eating.
Absolutely,
And it
because they parent their picky eater differently than they ever intended to parent them. I know I
exactly.
did.
Exactly. And so then we end up the what might have been garden variety picky eating ends up spiraling into a little bit more. And then we create more anxiety. And
Right.
it's sort of that stacking model that you talk about,
Yeah.
where we just reinforce those behaviors. And what started out as a small problem ends up becoming a bigger problem. And absolutely, when you miss that window of opportunity to have early intervention, it's a problem. Early intervention folks are some of the best people in our community. They come into the home, they evaluate kiddos, and they give them those services that they may need. And that often runs out after about age 3. So it's really, really important if you have an eater that you're worried about to talk to your pediatrician and get in touch with those services, so that you can kind of turn the ship around and make sure that
Yeah.
that eater goes in the right direction.
Right, right. And I can see that we have several questions that have popped up, some along the same lines of what you're discussing, and we're going to start answering those in just 1 minute. But I'm just going to remind everybody that this is our power hour. So
Yes.
we have put several times in the link, in the comments, excuse me, where you can donate during this hour, and I'm going to match your donation. So please do that. And if you give
Right.
$100, we'll send you a copy of Raising a Healthy Happy Eater signed by Dr. Young and little old me. And then finally, thank you. I can see all the comments coming through now. And because you're tagging your friends and you're asking questions, you are increasing your chance of winning the $50 coupon, which I'll be contacting you this evening, whoever happens to win, and you can apply it toward one of my video courses. But let's go ahead and take a question because I see that Ruth had a good one here. I put it right here on the screen. It says, what do you do if the pediatrician is the one who isn't concerned? They just aren't aware of the importance or even availability of feeding therapy sooner rather than later. You want to start there? Or you want me to?
Um, I would say most pediatricians have a number of things that they're trying to cover, right? So there's
Yes,
growth, there's development. And so I think it's important to stress that this might be your number one concern, and really hit home the stress that you are feeling, and the fact that you feel like with all of the things that you've tried, you're not seeing improvement. And you might even suggest, how about seeing a feeding therapist? What about early intervention? Is that something that we can do? And I will tell you, pediatricians love early intervention.
yeah,
The earlier the better. And even if it's just to get reassurance that things are okay and a few strategies, even if
exactly.
it doesn't involve, regular therapy, just getting the reassurance and some tips, I think can be so helpful. So don't give up. Talk to your pediatrician and suggest maybe that you feel the need for that kind of reassurance. And I'm telling you, most pediatricians will listen.
They really will. They really will. And for this professionals out there, they're often asking me, well, how do I get pediatricians to be like Dr. Yum? Well, first of all, I didn't have to get you to do anything because you're just amazing how you think like this.
Well, I've
So
learned a lot from you too.
we just want to clone you. So one of the suggestions that I always make, and I do this here in Colorado, you're right, pediatricians are so busy and they don't get a lot of education in medical school about nutrition and feeding, et cetera, because they have a lot to learn.
Sure.
And yeah, um, I just keep a whole stack of articles from my blog, and anyone's welcome to print those off. Just keep my copyright information on there. And I know you have really great things on dryum.org.
Right.
And I just keep a stack of that in my car because I'm doing all home visits. And every time I have 5 extra minutes and I'm driving by a pediatric office, I just run in, maybe I take in a nice red apple or maybe even a candy bar, a little something to get them to notice it.
Right.
And I just leave it with a quick sticky note saying, hey, thought you'd be interested in this. It's a really cool article about not pressuring your picky eater. that sort of thing. And the more we can drop off short little articles like that they have time to read during their break over their cup of coffee, the more we're helping them come to light that, gosh, this really can be an issue. And if a parent says to me, I really want some help, I got to jump on that for them.
Right.
So I think you bring up an excellent point, and it really is just a matter of helping them gain more knowledge and more awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing the fact that they're really busy and
Right.
they want to help. I mean, I know that for sure just from watching them all line up to talk to you at the AAP. They really want to know what to do.
They do. Feeding is one of those things that we hear a lot about. We get a lot of requests for help with feeding, but ironically, we don't get a lot of training in how to help people.
Yeah.
So it's become one of my missions is to try to impart what I've learned through just day-to-day practice from my friendships with folks like you, and let this newer generation of pediatricians who are training know about how to make feeding a priority in their practice, because it's such a foundation to health in general for kids,
Yeah.
and it's something that we should all spend a little bit more time on and attention to.
I love how you said make it a priority for sure. Another thing I often recommend to families is to buy a copy of Raising a Healthy Happy Eater. It's always on sale on Amazon, but your local bookstore carries it,
Hmm.
and drop it off at your pediatrician's office with a little note saying, "Thanks for taking care of my kid," because they'll glance through it, and also they'll put it on their waiting room shelf, and it'll make the rounds. It'll make the rounds. So
Yeah.
that's another way to help educate pediatricians for sure. Hey, we have another question here. I thought this was a good one. Marianne asks, how many foods should be on the plate? Do you limit the number of items presented to the child? What do you think about that, Dr. Young?
Well, I think having a variety is nice. I think it's visually appealing, but you and I know that most of us parents, we really overestimate how much a child needs to eat. And
Hmm.
when we put a lot of food on a plate, a large volume of food, that can be stressful for children. I think making food underwhelming is the word you always
Yeah,
use. Making food underwhelming in its quantity can be really helpful, but I think variety can be enticing. And we first eat with our eyes. So, putting foods on the plate that you know your child will like, but also putting foods on the plate that they're learning to like.
yeah,
Because we're all learning eaters and we can't learn unless we're trying.
right.
So, we have a tendency to put the foods on the plate that, oh, well, he's going to eat that. So I'm going to put this on his plate. That's great. But also, you want to put those practice foods on the plate as well. Um, and even if they don't touch them or try them, gaining that familiarity by having those foods on the plate day after day will only lead to hopefully eventually trying those foods. So I think, variety is good, but keep the volumes underwhelming.
You're reminding me of right when Raising a Healthy Happy Eater came out, and I did a little television segment here in Colorado. That video is pinned right to the top of my YouTube channel if anybody wants to see it. That's exactly what we talked about. And we really talked about keeping the portions underwhelming. So, sure, you might have 3 or 4 different food groups, and no, they're going to rotate through breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you just want to have fruit and a protein for lunch, that's fine. But as long as you're having a variety throughout the week, it's all going
Sure,
to even out.
sure.
But in that particular video, I have 3 different vegetables on the plate, but it's only a little tiny stalk of broccoli. I think it was 1 baby carrot and maybe a tiny piece of cauliflower. Maybe it was a tomato, a little cherry tomato. And what I was explaining to the host was that you want to keep it underwhelming, but we just got research yesterday from the Journal of Nutrition, actually, that it was a small study, but I thought it was really interesting. And it shows that if you put 3 vegetables on a child's plate as compared to 1, they're much more likely to learn to love vegetables. And from a psychology standpoint, what that is they have choices. They have
Right.
choices. So sometimes if we put, say, a piece of broccoli on the kid's plate, he's going to dig in his heels and say no. But if you put a baby carrot, piece of broccoli, and a little tomato, suddenly the fact he's not keen on the broccoli makes the baby carrot and the tomato not look so bad.
Right, right.
Yeah, and we have research around that too, that if you offer a semi preferred food with a highly preferred food, they'll always just eat the highly preferred food. But if you offer a semi preferred food, meaning they'll eat it every once in a while, with
Right,
a I don't want to eat that food, they'll have a good old time eating the semi preferred food. So
right,
there's
right.
definitely some reverse psychology in there for sure. And we've got the research to back us up.
I think
But
kids need choice and they need to feel a little bit of empowerment when
for
it comes to
sure.
choosing. Yeah,
Yeah, I think every human being wants that, especially kids, for
yeah.
sure. Um, let's see. Oh, here's a nice question that I think is perfect for you. Jasmine says, between nursing and introducing solids, I feel as though I'm overfeeding my 9 month old. What's a good guideline for frequency of feeding sessions? What do you think?
So, you're right in the middle of this transition. At 6 months when we start, we're primarily a milk drinker. Most of our nutrition should come from a combination of formula or breast milk.
Right.
And then by 12 months, we are squarely a food eater. So most of our nutrition is coming from food, solid foods, and only part of our nutrition is through milk. And usually we've really, um, downsized how much milk we're taking for the course of a day. So maybe 16 to 24 ounces of milk. So at 9 months, we're kind of figuring out how to get there.
Yeah,
I feel like, we should still be getting a pretty good amount of milk feedings for that protein, that fat. We're still doing a lot of brain development, so we need
sure.
that fat. But we also should be really taking advantage of the fact that babies are hungry for solid foods and they're developing all of their feeding skills. So by 9 months, I feel like we should be transitioning into that 3 meals, and maybe a snack or two.
Yeah.
And those don't have to be high volume, but practice is good, right? We want to be a great eater by 12 months since most of our nutrition is going to be from solid foods.
That's
Um,
right. And I think Jasmine too might be interested on my free toolbox tab. We have the
mm,
feeding schedule that's perfect for toddlers because Jasmine, your baby is going to be a toddler here in the
in
blink of an
two
eye.
seconds, yeah.
Yeah, in about 2 seconds. And it's the exact same information that we put in Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater to a T, but we just created a graphic. So you can download that for free under my free toolbox tab on my website.
Hi, Jasmine.
So,
I
yeah.
think I know Jasmine.
Well, all I know is Jasmine has a fabulous picture. I like how
She
she's
does.
holding. I'm going to do that. I like
She's
that.
she's
I
pretty
like.
fabulous. She's a fabulous mom too.
I bet. I bet. We've got another one here. Let's see. Oh, this is a great one too, because we talk a lot about constipation in Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater. And I know it's something you address all the time.
Yeah.
Angie asks, what are some water-rich foods to feed a child that is severely constipated and won't drink water?
So, I'm wondering how old this little one is. We usually try to get kids to just start enjoying little tastes of water starting at about 6 months, so that by the time they're a year and they are really decreasing the amount of milk, they are very good at drinking water in between meals, which is
Mhm.
great for their digestion. It's great for their teeth. So, I would continue to try to encourage water. Depending on the severity and the age of the child, there are some natural things that we can feed our children to kind of work as a gentle laxative. Sometimes I'll recommend a little bit of full strength pear, prune, or apple juice,
Uh-huh.
not as a drink, because as a drink, it can have a lot of sugar, but as a gentle, safe laxative, it can be very effective.
So more as a
Um,
medicine.
More as a medicine, and I
Yeah.
even tell parents, put it in a separate cup than your child knows is kind of their medicine cup,
Right.
right? And so it's different from their drinking cup where they're
Good
drinking
point.
water and milk. That can be really helpful. And I think, if you're experiencing constipation that doesn't respond to gentle, safe food type laxatives, including smoothies. So for older children, I do recommend some of the smoothies that we have on dryum.org. Then I would talk to your pediatrician, because there are some very safe laxatives that can be used in children. You're just going to need a little bit of guidance as to how much and how to adjust that day to day. But constipation can be one of those things that can lead to a poor appetite,
Mhm.
as you know. And so it's important to treat it, especially if you're near potty training, because you want the experience of potty training to be very comfortable and feel
Right.
safe. And if a child is constipated, they're probably not going to want to sit on the potty. So make sure, again, if it seems like it's a frustration or concern, to talk to your pediatrician and get some good answers so that you can help this little kiddo to feel better.
And in terms of foods, if they're not having any difficulty swallowing, any risk of aspiration, just because I know we have some therapists listening here too, just
Sure.
to kind of round out the conversation. As long as there's no risk of that, then things like watermelon,
Hmm.
watermelon has, I mean, literally what's why it's called
All
watermelon. It
water.
has so
Yeah.
much water and some good fiber in there too. But I really do like to encourage the kids to learn to drink more water. And if you go to my blog on melaniepotock.com and just search 2 words, constipation, and also search water, you'll find 3 or 4 articles with ideas on how you can help children deal with constipation and also learn to drink more water. But I would say watermelon for sure. And then I also like to add extra water to other foods.
Okay.
So if I've got like a 7-month-old and we're doing mashed potatoes, I'll add a little extra water, or maybe something that I know is approved by the pediatrician, I'll add it in. Maybe the mashed potatoes aren't quite as thick and heavy, but I'm getting that little bit of extra fluid that they need. And
Right.
over the course of a day, that's a good way to get in at least another quarter cup, which can really, really be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's see what other questions here. We'll take a few more and then we'll wind up for the night. Don't forget to click on the
Power
donation
hour.
button, Power Hour,
Yeah.
and yeah, make me get out my checkbook, everybody, because I'm going to match your donation. And don't forget that when I will be contacting someone to let them know they won the $50 gift card. And then if you also donate if you make $100 donation, you get a copy of Raising a Healthy Happy Eater signed
That's
by
right.
the two of us. All right, let's see. I saw a really good one that went by. Hang on 1 second. Oh my goodness, there are so many. It's hard to keep up with it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, you know what? I just want to share this comment from Erin. She says, "The best thing the book taught us is that if your kid eats great as a baby, then refuses new food, it's okay because you've developed good habits and JAGs are normal." Erin, you're so smart.
You're so smart, Aaron. I think I know Aaron too.
She's a member
No,
of our Adventures in Veggieland Facebook group too, where we talk about how to eat vegetables.
yes,
Erin is.
she's
But I'm
a
sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
no, it's absolutely true. I mean, Aaron can tell you that it's one of the things that I try to prepare parents for. So I have this little conversation at 12 months with parents, and I say, okay, so you have a hungry little caterpillar now. Enjoy this little hungry caterpillar, because naturally, our growth is going to slow down and our babies are going to not be as interested in feeding. And as you said, they've got more important things to do
Yeah,
than eat. They
right.
are learning to say no. They are learning to get around the world. They are learning about independence. And so food takes sort of a back burner. And lucky, they have stored up for winter. They've spent the first year just eating and eating and eating. They're not doing a whole lot else besides
Yeah,
eating. They can't go anywhere.
right.
They're just sitting around eating everything that you give them. So they're well equipped to kind of deal with that second year of life. And so it's one of those things, giving that information ahead of time, I think, can really be reassuring to families, that it's okay if they only eat 1 or 2 good meals in the day. It may be enough to get them to grow on that growth curve that we talked about earlier.
Sure, sure. And I think that toddler schedule we talked about really helps with that too, because it could also
Yeah.
be 5 mini meals, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's going to be okay. I like this comment from Betsy. I just wanted to share it with you. She said, "I'm a mom of an 11-year-old picky eater. have you created a course that teachers can add to their middle school curriculum? Betsy, we haven't yet. We've talked about this,
Hmm.
and we've talked about writing a second book too, more geared toward the older picky eater. But I do highly recommend that even if you have an older child, that you take the picky eater course. It's geared for 6 months to about 6 years, but it'll also help you see maybe how some of this came to be. The anxiety course will also help you quite a bit. And then finally, right over my shoulder here, there's Raising Healthy Happy Eater, and there is Adventures in Veggieland. And that's my latest book that would be ideal for anyone, really a kid, even age 2, but all the way up to age 12. Because what it does is it teaches kids to learn to love vegetables by doing food crafts and activities with their parents, as well as cooking. And honest to goodness, it's really feeding therapy in a cookbook, but it's for any family to have a good time with. And you'll get lots and lots of tips in there for any age picky eater on how to help them learn to take a taste. So I
And
really appreciate your question, Betsy.
I do too. And we see a lot of older kids that come in to our teaching kitchen. So we have our own teaching kitchen in Spotsylvania. The first sort of curriculum that we created was actually for 7 to 12-year-olds. And I will say a lot of parents of picky eaters will sign their kids up for those kinds of cooking camps because cooking can be a great avenue out of the picky eating, jags that we can get into, even in middle school and even high schoolers, I see getting stuck. And cooking is a great way to start making friends with food again. And so, one of the things that we really are focused on at the Dr. Young Project is educating. And right now, we're focused so heavily on preschoolers, but we have started working with schools in other ways with older children. So we kind of call it internally the School of Yum, right?
Uh-huh,
So
right.
we'd love to develop more curricula that address different age groups. And one of the things that we've dreamed about creating is an after school cooking club type curriculum for middle schoolers
Great.
who are
Yeah.
interested in cooking to be able to do that in school or after school as a program after school. And we have found when kids start cooking, they start eating a little bit better. They start becoming more comfortable with food. And even within the course of a week in one of our cooking camps, we'll see huge amounts of progress, especially when kids are cooking together because they tend to encourage each other. And so I would say, for now, if you can find any kind of cooking program, or if you can even just spend the time cooking with your 11-year-old at home, you may see a little bit of a shift. So,
And I think one of the important things for the parents to remember is it isn't always about tasting right away.
right,
That's something we talk a lot about in Adventures in Veggieland, and that it's really more about being together in the kitchen and helping that anxiety to go down and experiencing food at the most basic level. But
right.
that book will give you ideas too, Betsy, about how to encourage kids to take a taste. Along that same note, I thought we'll take this one last comment here from Nicole, and then we'll wind up for the night. But I love what she said. She said, I work in early intervention as a speech language pathologist, and I so wish there was a good home program to use with our families for their babies and toddlers. The pre K program sounds amazing. I wish there was something for a home setting with the birth to 3 population. Well, Nicole, the good news is that the strategies that Dr. Yum and I use in the Dr. Yum preschool food adventure are really right out of Raising a Healthy Happy Eater. And you can just take those strategies and encourage your families to incorporate those at home. I would love at some point to develop a home program as well for that birth to 3 population, since early intervention is so important. But I think for right now, the best resources are both of our websites, and gosh, we have so many articles on there. And
Yeah.
I know you've been in the New York Times, Dr. Yum, and we've got CNN and gosh, Parents Magazine. There are just so many that I think parents really will find inviting to read.
Hmm.
So we're not necessarily talking about journal articles, which can be a little bit heavy, frankly. But something that's more relatable, I think, and quick and easy. So
And the
those
Picky
are
Eater
all.
course too. The Picky Eater course is a great
The
resource
Picky Eater course is a
for
great
parents too.
resource. Yeah, definitely. And then finally, I wanted to mention to everybody that when we are at the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we also got to speak at the American Speech Language Hearing Association last year and talk about our preschool food adventure. But when we're at the AAP, one of the things we really encourage is for the pediatricians to order a case of our books, because you can get them for 50% off. Just contact either one of us. We'll get you in touch with the distributor and you can get a whole box. I think there's 14 in a box, maybe 12. I can't quite remember. You can get the book for 50% off. And we're encouraging pediatricians to give them as the new baby gift. So just some more ideas,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to early intervention, is maybe the EI agency would like to purchase 12 books that they can loan out to families
Right.
and use some of these strategies to incorporate into the treatment plan. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. And then finally, last note on that, if you go to the free toolbox page on my website, you'll see that we have a book club all around raising a healthy, happy eater. And
Yeah.
you can download that for free. It's all the questions that you can use for the book club, as well as recipes and fun activities to incorporate into having your local book club read Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater. And I know you've had visited with book clubs there in Virginia who are doing that.
Yeah, and I actually even had a group of residents in pediatrics
So cool.
at the institution where I trained and taught for a while, the University of Texas Houston Health Sciences Center. Their residents actually used Raising a Healthy Happy Eater as their book of the month. And I got to Skype in and answer some questions too. It was a ton of fun. So if there are any trainees out there too, that might be another fun activity to do. And the book club questions are already packaged and on Melanie's website.
Well, you know what? It's been 61 minutes and 45 seconds, so we're
Wow.
over. But I think we should do this again. I think we should do this again. But it was so
Yeah.
fun to do it this week for the Yumathon. And I hope during this power hour, people donated. And I hope that I have to write you a very big check to match their donation.
I
And
hope so
then
too.
please, everybody, pay attention to your Facebook Messenger, because if you won the $50 coupon toward one of the video courses, I'll be messaging you tonight. And if you donated $100, you'll be hearing from us really soon, along with a thank you note and a signed copy of Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater.
Yeah. And the Dr. Young Project also, when you're donating, you'll see that we also give you some goodies
Oh,
for different levels of donation as well. So there's a beautiful lunch tote. We're trying to encourage families to pack their own lunches and take food on the go with them. That's healthy and prepared at home or fixed at home. So we have a great lunchbox. There's a water bottle. There's a bento box, depending on the level of donation that you have, and you can also help sponsor a preschool to have our program in their school and affect change with a whole bunch of kids and families as well.
yeah. That's a wonderful way to do some good, for sure.
That's
All
right.
right, my dear friend. Thank you for doing this with me tonight.
Thank
And
you for having me and for your power hour. And I'm hoping that the donations are coming in.
yeah, I'm sure they are. And listen, everybody, be sure to share this from my Facebook page. Hey, you know what? Why not share it with your pediatrician?
That's
And
right.
thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight, but you can share this from the Facebook page. And you can also, if you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'll edit this down and you'll get it in your email inbox
Yes.
in the next couple days.
And one more thing, we will be
Yes.
on Facebook Live all day tomorrow. So
Oh,
tomorrow is a big day at the Yamathon. We will be cooking all day long in our kitchen in Spotsylvania, doing tons of really practical ideas about cooking for your family. So if you're looking for that kind of information, tune into us all day on the Dr. Yum Facebook page.
on the Dr. Young Facebook page. All right. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.